What's up, guys? Sir Sneaker here, and here we have episode 4 of Soul Talk. Today we have a lot of hosts, so without further ado, I'll get into the intros. I am Sir Sneaker, one of your hosts. I make videos on YouTube. You guys hopefully know me by now. And host number 2, you want to introduce yourself?
What's up, guys? I'm Frontations. I do videos on YouTube. I post pictures on Instagram, and I just talk about sneakers on Twitter.
And I am PB, and I do videos on YouTube and a lot of other stuff. And I'm here to introduce you a new permanent host of Soul Talk. We have Oneveracity with us.
What's
Yeah.
up, guys? Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's Oneveracity here. Glad to be a part of the show from now on. I love the first time I was on, and I can't wait to do all the further episodes.
And we have a very special guest, Nick, with us to provide some insight. And those are the hosts for this episode.
I don't do anything.
Awesome. So I hope you guys enjoy all of our hosts today. And our first topic that we're going to be talking about is samples. I can at least speak for myself when I say I get asked about samples a lot, probably because one of the things my channel is known for are the Yeezy samples. So I guess I'll start the topic off by saying that I love samples. I love the idea of samples. One of the things that I feel like I need to talk about is the difference between like an unreleased sample and a promo sample. A lot of people, see promo samples and they jump on them if they're new to the game because they think promo samples are, like really, really limited. But a lot of times there are a lot of promo samples, and with the CDP4 samples, those are fake. I know a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of legit sites sold them, but I personally, like, when it comes to like the one-of-one samples, I really, really try to get those, especially if they're like Yeezy samples, because I think it's just really cool to see that part of like the history of the shoe. Like the laser Yeezy samples that I have, for instance, like that's an early prototype before they had figured out the Y print. That lasering was supposed to be on all the Yeezys instead of elephant print, which is what Kanye originally wanted. And just that peek into history that samples give you, I think, is really, really cool. So I like them. But I think a lot of people also don't realize with early prototypes, it's really hard to wear them. But I also get questions a lot about where to find them, and definitely like eBay, Soul Collector. You'd be surprised. But for some of the like higher up samples, you kind of need to like know people at Nike and all that stuff. But yeah, so that's really my opinion on samples.
Yeah, and for me, I definitely am a fan of samples. One case in particular with the Kobe costumes when they came out, the stuff that released to the public was only size 8 and up. And as you guys might know, I wear size 6, 6.5, if I need to, 7. And so, that wasn't even a choice for me. I did get the size 8. I did wear it because I really like that shoe. I got it signed. But, yeah, I was able to find a sample for size 6, which fits me perfectly. I guess it was meant for, I think it was Costin's kid. I don't know exactly the full details on that. But so now I'm able to wear the shoe that I like, So samples to me are definitely a good look. I've owned a few, even stuff that's not my size. More recently, I picked up the Nubuck 3 samples because, I don't expect to see that actually released. And the Black Cement 3 is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Jordan. So any variation of that shoe I definitely want. And yeah, I'm definitely all about the samples.
I think samples are great for all the reasons you guys said, but in terms of actual wearability, I feel like that's where they may fall flat a bit because like Ian, like if I or Sir Sneaker rather, if like I saw you wearing those and I didn't know who you were or whatever and I saw you in the street, I would most likely assume that they were fake unless we were at like like a sneaker con or something and like where you wouldn't wear fake shoes. So I feel like it's hard because to the general population, it's not like in the know in the sneaker world. They're just even like me on the street. Like if I see somebody wearing a pair of Yeezys that I don't see as released, then I may assume that they're fake. So I feel like it's a great thing to own and to like show people and to like have for the history. But the wearability of samples is where like I feel like sometimes they fall flat. Obviously, there's like the well-known ones like the Gucci resins or stuff like that before they're released. But for the less well-known samples, like or the one-of-ones, it's really hard for you to like wear them and get the respect that like the price tag and the exclusivity shoe deserves because most people will assume they're fake or just like not know the history behind them.
Yeah, and I definitely can speak to both Ian and David's statements. I've actually seen those navy and orange sample Yeezys that Kanye first broke out faked at a movie theater, and they look like cowboy boots. They were horrendous. And I've also been approached to buy, the countdown pack for samples, whatever those are, which Ian said they are fakes. And I, of course, was a little bit skeptical about it. Samples to me have not been a huge, part of my sneaker collecting, just due to the fact I've never really been presented with the right opportunity for the right sample. For the right price, I'd just rather go with this sneaker that I could wear without knowing that it is rare and I don't want to get it dirty.
Like, I would love to have the samples that you have, Ian, like, so much, because I love Kanye, I love the Yeezys and everything. But, like, if it comes down to the choice, I usually can't afford the samples. So, like, I'd rather have those as, like, a piece of history, like you said, more than a wearable shoe. Because
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
mean,
that's what the value is.
that's like I totally agree. And to be honest, maybe I wouldn't be as interested in getting Yeezy samples if Kanye and I weren't the same size.
Mhm.
But I just felt like it was too good to be true. And
Too good.
yeah, well, I enjoy wearing sneakers for myself, and I've worn both my samples out on numerous occasions. One of them got rained on, and I I wear them for me though. I know a lot of people think they're fake, and I had one kid, laugh and come up to me like, "Hey man, where'd you get those?" I was like, "Kanye's closet." Like, just because, and of course he didn't believe me, and that's not actually where I got them, but I felt like being a smartass. But like, I to me, I wear them for me, and I like in terms of like how much they cost, they definitely do cost a lot. And that's like a lot of people see those samples and they think like, man, if he's willing to drop this much on samples, his collection must be crazy. And to be honest, I've shied away from a collection video because my collection is not crazy. Like, I mean, I guess it's kind of crazy when you consider that I have two one of one Yeezy samples, but that's where all my money went. Like, people don't understand. Like, I was saving up like tons of money. I've been trying to get that one sample. I know I've said this on the show before. I've said this in other places. I was trying to get that one sample for 4 years. So I had that money waiting just for that opportunity. So yeah, I mean, you definitely do have to invest in getting samples. And I'll tell you, so many people think what I'm wearing is fake and stuff. But I remember one of the first times I wore the laser samples out, which is definitely the pair I wear most just because they're all black. I passed so many people who would like laugh at me, whatever. And then I remember I passed one guy, and that one guy, he was with his girlfriend, and he instantly, I could tell in his eyes, knew what they were because his jaw just like dropped. And I'm like I'm gonna be honest too. Like the other thing is, a lot of people recognize them as something that belonged to GLC, but they look at me and the way I look, and they're like, man, how would this kid get them? So little do people know GLC's a good friend of mine and all that stuff. But I mean, I just think also there are so many awesome colorways of shoes besides the Yeezys. I mean, I personally think like the two Yeezy samples I got my hand on, and you can say I'm biased, I probably am. I think those are two of the dopest Yeezy colorways I've seen, but including the release versions. But like even like with talking about like Fran's collection of samples and stuff, like the yellow lobsters, which I know you can argue like those. I know some of them technically released whatever, but like those are insane to me. Those might be the best lobsters.
Yeah.
So like I feel like that's just getting your hands on a pair of shoes that look awesome. Like I still envy the fact that Fran has not one but two yellow lobsters. That just destroys my mind.
When I got the opportunity, I couldn't pass it up.
I don't blame
I
you,
see.
man.
Like, I feel like with like Fran's Yellow Lobsters, like those are a shoe though that like are one of the ones that's like you can wear and people are gonna assume that's really. Like, if I see somebody wearing Yellow Lobsters, I'm like, oh my god, he's a Yellow Lobsters. The problem with the true like one of one samples like you have is like that just like you said, like your experience, like there's certain ones that are well known samples that are like maybe 30 pairs, really a lot of press on them, that you're gonna see and like you're gonna know that like they're probably really like wow, like but the one of ones I feel like is where like it falls out a bit. But also one other point that I wanted to bring up is that like now you guys don't participate in this like at all, but I feel like that what could happen with the potential for sample buying is what I said in the other show, where kids kind of just like buy stuff to show off on Facebook, YouTube, the internet, and then don't really wear it. And I feel like that's what buying samples could lead to. Not saying that it does, because usually those kids aren't the kind of kids that are doing that. They're buying it for the love of the shoe. But I'm saying that it could easily lead to that, where it's like a dead stock type of collection, and they're like, look at all my stuff, and like it's just like an internet fame thing. And I'm not saying that it necessarily leads to that. I'm saying that's one of the fears that I would have with that.
Yeah, I mean that's a definite possibility. And another part of it is I imagine like everybody I talk to in the sneaker community, I can instantly, say names of like all three of you guys, and people know. Like for instance, if somebody sees Fran on the street, I'm sure Fran, you get recognized a good deal, and
Hmm.
if people see you and they're not going to think, oh, that's Fran Relations. Those are probably fake. But
Right.
Sir Sneaker, I'm definitely the least famous out of at least Veracity, PB, and Fran. So,
That's
like,
changing. That's changing.
I mean, but who knows? But but when people see me again, it's like, who's this kid?
I almost think it's better when people don't know what the sneakers are and they're assuming like, oh, that's fake, blah blah. Like to me, like that's a plus. If they don't know what's up, and I do, like that's really a plus to me. So I don't even mind it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just glad I don't have to worry about getting mugged. Like
Right.
I've been almost mugged from my shoes either 3 or 4 times in Chicago. Never in New York, but in Chicago. And lucky enough, I was wearing good shoes, so I was able to get away. But yeah, I was always so scared that I was going to get robbed for those. But then I realized nobody knew what they were, so that's good, I guess. But
Yes.
Nick, you want to comment on it at all on samples?
Um, I don't really mess with samples or anything. I just buy whatever. So,
Gotcha. Well, unless anybody has anything they want to say about samples, I guess we can move next into customs.
Sounds good.
I appreciate samples though. So.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But moving on, we want to talk about customs and how there's sort of, when you're discussing samples, you kind of have to address customs too. I know there are a lot of, misconceptions. A lot of people who are new to the game combine the two. They think like samples are customs. And like, I'll give this example. The Gay Fish Air Yeezys are customs. They are not samples. Uh,
Hey man, you never know, man. You never know, right?
I
Kanye.
do know. I do know that
Do you?
they're customs, but I like a lot of people are like, oh, did you ever get those samples? I'm like, well, those aren't samples, but I like customs to me. I definitely appreciate the art form, and when you see like what some people do, and I can't stress enough what some people do, it's really impressive. But I definitely see certain customs where I'm like, man, come on, like, and I don't mean to diss those customs guys. I mean, they have tons of talent, and it, clearly shows on what they do. But I think a lot of the stuff is just like, yeah, I'll pass. Talk about something that's like fake. At least if somebody's going to mistake like a sample for fake, that you're holding something that's like a piece of Nike history or Adidas history. Whereas with customs, it's like you had somebody paint something. But
This makes
that's
me wonder, like what people haven't seen. You know what I mean? Like what samples aren't out there? What samples whatever Nike or whoever still owns? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of stuff. I've definitely seen shoes that people have never seen before, and they're gonna assume they're fake. Because I mean, the blogs definitely show us a good number of the samples, but there's plenty of colorways of Jordans or Dunks or whatever it is that no one has ever seen, and they probably won't see because Nike, they keep their stuff hush hush, hush hush. If certain people get these certain shoes, they don't want pictures going out, and these people will get in trouble for showing that stuff.
To
So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
if you buy samples or anything just to impress people, you shouldn't because it's really what you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And going off of what Fran was saying, interesting little story. I'm not going to get too far into this because I don't want to offend any of the parties involved.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got my second Air Yeezy sample, there was a moment in time where it was suggested to me, I'll say, that Kanye was mad at me for having them. And I don't want to get further into it, but that was like the scariest feeling ever. Like I was sitting in French class thinking I was gonna get sued by my hero. Like it was a horrible, horrible moment.
I don't think he could do that, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, well,
What if you
Kanye.
hired a hitman to like come swag assassinate you?
Swag session.
Swag
Wow.
assassin. Man, I think that might become
That's
some.
the title for this episode. Swag assassinate for sure.
Swag assassination.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But I mean, like, of course Kanye couldn't. But in that moment, when you're hearing that or when you're being texted
Mhm.
that, it's scary. I'm like, oh my god, what do I do?
Wow.
Especially when you're walking around with a shoe that on the inside it says property of Nike, not for resale, and you know you bought them resale. Like I remember like when I was a kid walking into Nike Town for the first time with my sample Yeezys and thinking like, man, are they just gonna like lock the doors and just like cage match me for these shoes? But anyway, back to the topic of customs. Anybody want to touch on their opinion of customs?
Yeah, for sure.
I can personally say that I've had a custom done for me. I got my Chrome Ball custom lows cement printed or Supreme printed, like the elephant print and the black cement threes and the Supreme SV drop in 2002. But I got it on the Chrome Ball lows, and they had the same gray nubuck, and it turned out to be super dope, super awesome. So I got those shoes for free. The customization cost $60, and I flipped them for $270 at Sneaker Summit. So I made a little bit of money off that. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed my process with that.
It's cool. I mean, whenever I've seen customs, definitely, photos and everything looks really good. But when you look at it up close, you can see the paint marks and you can see all that. And to me, I mean, it doesn't look sloppy. You know that these people put a lot of work and a lot of talent into it. But for me, it just, I don't know, there's something about it that just looks off. And so since I wear my shoes, I understand the art form of it and everything, but, I want something that I can wear and it'll look good. And I feel like customs usually fall short, whether it's from the materials used or the paint job done. So that's just why I don't personally mess with it. And as I know I wear my shoes, but as I guess you could say a collector and whatnot, I'm more so collecting stuff out of Nike's, archive than something that someone who I don't know has created. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, see, that's really interesting. Like, I've never seen customs in person. I've only seen them obviously on like Nice Kicks and whatnot, and I've always thought they look really dope. And like I mean, like, Fran, you would obviously like if they don't look up to par in like in person, then obviously I wouldn't want to purchase them. But from seeing them like online and whatnot, I've always like I thought they looked pretty dope. Like some of the different ideas, it's like seeing like a colorway that like you might want in the shoe like kind of come to fruition. And so like I feel like it's a little bit different of a game than like the fake ones. Like if they're executed well, I feel like people might assume that they're customs, but again, you always have the that's fake, like that's clearly fake thing. So I don't know. Like I've always thought it's more of an art form than like it's not like it's of course it's a limited shoe because there's only one, but I've always liked it as an art form or like bringing a colorway that you love to a completely new silhouette and kind of seeing the creation of that. But if they're executed extremely well, I think they're dope. I mean, like I've never been able to like afford them over like other shoes that I've wanted to purchase that have been releasing, but I've always like had a couple ideas for what I'd like. Like I was always a fan of like the different South Beach Jordans that they did and whatnot, or like some of the Galaxy customs I thought looked almost more dope than the foams. But I don't know. Like I think that they're pretty cool. If they're done right, and it's kind of like a piece of artwork. It might not be for as much wear, but like it's literally art then. Like we regard sneakers as art now, but it's literally art then. So I don't know. I mean, with the proper custom, with the proper level of skill work, I feel like they could be really dope. But I won't be getting one for a very long time. So
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna move on. So, Fran, if you have something you want to add in quickly.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like when I saw the South Beach, I think it was like 6 or something like that, Jordan 6. I was like, dang, that's pretty dope. Like I even thought about wanting to get one done. And then I go to a SneakerCon event and I don't think it was the same exact artist, but I see people like with that shoe and stuff. And up close, it looks like trash. I'm sorry. Like in person, it's a lot harder to appreciate it once you see it in person. And I know for me, I'd rather not mess with them after seeing that. That totally like turned me off. So yeah.
Absolutely. So this was kind of unplanned, so I apologize to the other host, but I was just thinking really quickly if we could comment on the sort of scrapped releases, such as the Freddie SBs, all that kind of stuff. The Loons, I know they were released, and of course the Gucci's and all that stuff. But how you feel about those, and which, if you could like pinpoint one scrapped release that you wish released, even if nowadays by today they have released, such as the Gucci's, like what one scrapped release did you want more than the others, or did you wish released? I'll start it off. I'll say a lot of people don't know, but the Fire Red Air Yeezy 1 was originally supposed to be the third colorway. It was the nets were added last minute. So I would have loved the Fire Red Yeezy ones.
Mhm.
Definitely still one of my favorite colorways of that. So I would love if those released. There are some samples floating around. I'm trying my hardest to get my hands on those, but like I really love that colorway. But also, I really have to say I really like the Freddies. Like I think they have a lot of personality to them. But I know they're kind of crazy, not everybody's taste. But
I mean, I definitely agree. Freddy's, when pictures first leaked to that, I remember calling up all the shops, like, yeah, we're going to be getting them in a few months, going around to all the shops, even after Halloween passed, still hitting up the shops, and they're like, yeah, maybe we'll get them in a month or so. I was really disappointed to find out they weren't going to re-release. And that shoe, just from the details of it to the execution of when you see it, you know it's Freddy Krueger, like, without a doubt. That's definitely just one of those shoes that I'm really disappointed didn't come out. I mean, I'm happy I was able to get my hands on it, but it's the type of shoe, one, that I want multiple pairs of, and two, that I'd really want other people to have in their collection. So definitely when I think of unreleased or scrapped shoes, that's one that comes to mind. Another one is, I think there's some like Joker Dunk mids, and I think Hellboy Dunk highs. And I remember seeing those, and I was like, dang, like that's what's up. And they never came out either. So I don't know what it is with Nike SB, but a lot of dope colorways just kind of, for whatever reason, get scrapped. I don't know if it's just because of the things they base it off of, and they're not allowed to, or they're not happy with the colorways, or what. But it's kind of disappointing.
yeah, I totally agree. And I just thought of another one that I really wish released: the reverse infrared black infrared sixes, where the predominant, like the most of the midsole is infrared instead of just the hits. Those are like super dope, and there are a lot of samples of those out. Like I don't know, like I'm not gonna throw out a number, but I think those are like really sick. But
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a super dope sneaker. I wish they dropped those.
yeah, especially with how much people are falling in love with infrared sixes now. But anyway, any last comments on that topic?
Yeah, I feel like the scrap releases are, I don't know. I mean, personally, like obviously, I wish the shoes released, but I feel like those are, I don't want to say better than samples, but like the Freddies, I feel like if I have the money, like I can get my hands on a pair of those, and it kind of makes like some of like it makes those shoes more famous. Like I remember the Loons. I used to look at those and be like, those are so dope. I wish they were released. And then when they were released, I got them, but then everybody else got them. So it's like some of like the really dope shoes, like they're limited enough where it's like there's enough access to them if you really want them, but like they're not. It's like the samples you can't get your hands on. Like those are hard. You have to seek those out. But the scrap releases, usually there's enough floating around that you can, if you really want them, get your hands on them. So I'm not saying that I'm a fan of scrap releases at all, but I'm saying that sometimes SB does things that like they don't really have license for, and I'd rather them do that and get them scrapped and get a few pairs out there than like not do them at all. And if I was to point out one, I can't remember the name of it, but it was back like before the Blue Lobsters released, and it was a purple, red, and blue SB Low, and I think it had something to do with China, like the Olympics or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it was super dope. I remember I called my favorite store in California, the one that I deal with now. I don't want to say it, but they that was the first time I made a relationship with them, and I kept on calling them back and back. And then that shoe actually got me the relationship that like allows me to get the shoes from them now. Which they stopped like right after that shoe. Is when they stopped like allowing people to do phone orders and whatnot. And because
Oh
I
yeah.
had called and reserved that shoe, and then didn't release, they let me into the system. So if it hadn't been for that shit, I wouldn't have half the SBs that I have now. But I do wish that shoe released. That's my one big one. And then the Yeezys that you said, because I've never been a huge fan of the net colorway, and I always love red. So
That's and that's a super dope story. And like connections are one of those things like I get asked about all the time, and it's really hard to tell people how to make them. It just sort of happens naturally. But I think we should probably wrap up the episode. I know we all have some things to get to, but I really do think we covered some good topics, and we definitely had some good input. So thank you guys, all you hosts out there. Thanks Veracity for joining the crew permanently. That's going to be super exciting. And thank you, Nick, for coming on for the show today. And also, if you guys know, Nick does all of our recording, so he's responsible for the increase in sound quality. So definitely big thank you to him for that.
Everyone give him a round of applause in the comments.
Round of applause. Whoa, Nick. Whoa, Nick. Whoa there, Nick. Whoa.
But yeah, anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed episode 4 of Soul Talk, and definitely tune in next week for episode 5.
Deuces.
Swag assassin or whatever you said.
All right, bye.